God, I spoke too much. The obsession over schoolgirls. You are not ready for this. When I tell you that you are not ready for this, you are not ready. Before you grab your pitchforks, let me say, you know that I love Japan, but like any relationship, there are things and few quirks that just get under my skin. Trust me, you will want to stick around until the end because the last one is not just surprising, it's seriously something we need to talk about. So, buckle up, hit the like button, subscribe, and let's go into the good, the bad, and the downright baffling things that made me question my life choices here in Japan. Hit it.
Winner. It really whips the llama's ass.
I would like to start with microaggressions. Living in Japan as a foreigner is a captivating experience, but it often comes with a side of microaggressions. Those, subtle, often unintentional slights. So the persistent foreigner label, no matter how long you've lived in Japan and how fluent you have become, being called gaijin, a foreigner, can feel a constant reminder that you are forever an outsider. What starts as harmless identifier can eventually feel like a label that sets you apart from, everyone else. Number 2, the language barrier assumption. Yes, I'm saying assumption. Even if you are practically a walk-in dictionary, you'll likely encounter people who assume you cannot understand Japanese. Whether it's someone slowing down their speech or simplifying their words or avoiding conversation altogether, these interactions highlight that your foreign face often speaks louder than your language. Don't get me wrong, a lot of Japanese people don't do that, okay? But since we are making this video, we are trying to discuss the other side of things. The backhanded compliment. Whoa, you can use chopsticks. Nihongo jouzu desu ne. These phrases are, of course, might be intended as compliments, but they can come off as a bit patronizing. It's as if people are surprised that you can handle basic tasks and speak language subtly, reinforcing the idea that you're somehow different. This happens to me a lot when I'm meeting other moms, for example, in a play center for children, or if I try to go to a store and engage in a conversation with somebody. Of course, I understand they're surprised by seeing a foreigner speaking their language. However, on the long run, if I do speak more complex sentences, I would be happy to hear such compliments. But the fact of just saying "Ohayo gozaimasu" or "Arigatou gozaimasu" and somebody tells you "Nihongo jouzu desu ne," kind of again, very patronizing. Dame desu. The housing discrimination dilemma. Okay, side note, I have never lived this because obviously I'm white. No, this has nothing to do with your skin color. Actually, a lot of Caucasians have issues basically renting. Let me explain to you. Apartment hunting in Japan can be very, very difficult and a real challenge when landlords are hesitant to rent to foreigners. Fears of communication, fears of misunderstanding, cultural difference usually lead to a frustrating and disheartening search for a place to call home, reminding you of the barriers to fully integrating into this society. Work, job, the job market hurdle. Even in professional world, foreigners can be seen as a temporary fixtures, not serious about long-term careers. This can limit your opportunities for advancement, leaving you stuck into a sort of professional limbo. The movie Fear and Trembling brilliantly captures this struggle where a foreign employee, a woman, faces a series of challenges navigating into the Japanese corporate culture as an outsider. It's really worth the watch. So, watch it. There are other microaggressions that happen every day. Some stuff that I lived personally are very small and very stupid perhaps for you when you hear this YouTube video. For example, living in a mansion. Well, mansion is not what you think in Japan. Mansion is basically apartment. That's the same word for apartment. Living in this apartment, we park our bicycles outside. And sometimes you have one crazy motherfucker who does weird shit. Very passive-aggressive things, such as emptying the air from your bicycle tires because you parked in their favorite spot, perhaps. You have another thing that's really not spoken about online. There is a very strange practice called Butsukari Otoko. Buari Oto means, well, basically, let's make a scenario. You're walking in the station and suddenly someone shoulders you very, very hard. I've seen this in some YouTube videos, and this is basically this angry salaryman who hates everybody. Not necessarily a salaryman, but we've seen people randomly. Basically, walking through people with the shoulder braced, and they start hitting people with their shoulder. Dealing with this was really easy for me because, hey, I'm Algerian, okay? You don't play these things. We don't play these games, okay? So basically, I always brace my shoulders, and I should tell you to do the same, especially women. Brace your shoulders when you are in a busy station such as Shibuya, Shinjuku, you know, the big ones, because you might meet someone like this. So literally brace yourself. These microaggressions might seem minor in isolation, but together they contribute to what we call the persistent sense of otherness. While Japan is an incredible place to live, it's important to recognize these challenges and find ways to address them, whether by building strong support networks or opening up conversation about your experience. It's very surprising because a lot of Japanese people would do what we call the practice of gaman, which basically to hold back and to never complain. And I feel like this is what bothers me so much in Japan about them, because they have so much feelings to share, but they cannot share them. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, if you are not able to share your feelings of sadness or happiness with anyone else, you might end up ending your own life. And as you all know, this is unfortunately a very infamous practice in Japan, and I hope that Japanese people would open up more about it. Let's talk about fruits. Oh my god, fruits in Japan. So let me start with a quote from a website I found. Behind every fruit, there is a farmer with an ikigai. Ikigai is the reason people get up in the morning. It's what brings joy to their lives. To our farmers, fruit farming is their ikigai, and it's what makes the ikigai fruit the best fruit in the world. Woo-hoo! In Japan, fruit giving isn't just a simple gesture, it's practically an art form. Forget about everyday produce with its charming bumps and bruises. Here, only the finest specimens make the cut. Reminds me of someone. Nurtured with such meticulous care, and they arrive at the market as near perfect treasures. Of course, such perfection comes at a price, and one that might just leave your wallet gasping for air. When it comes to fruits in Japan, it's often said that the steep prices are a reflection of a meticulous care lavished on each individual piece. Tales of cherry farmers tenderly hand polishing their ruby germs, followed by consumers savoring the succulent white flesh, are frequently shared to rationalize, the exorbitant costs of locally grown produce. I'm sorry, Japan, but these heartwarming narratives are as much a part of the marketing as the fruit itself, adding a layer of cultural significance that helps justify the premium price tag. Okay, let's talk numbers. Japan takes the crown when it comes to the world's most expensive fruit, leading the pack of what we know as Yubari King melon. Guys, a pair of these sold for a staggering price of $3.5 million, around $23,500. But wait, it does not stop there. Japan also offers luxury fruits like white jewel strawberries, which can go for $1,500 a pop. And that's about $10. Okay, a lot of friends on Instagram send me this picture and they go like, hey, Atra, is this good? The famous square watermelon from Kagawa Prefecture, typically priced around 10,000 yen, which is around $70 for just one. Oh, here's a fun fact. The square watermelon is inedible, yes! That cool cube shape comes at a cost. So basically they are harvested before they even get a chance to ripen. Believe it or not, they used to grow them to be edible, but it turns out all that effort just wasn't worth it on the long run. So while they might look awesome on your Instagram feed, don't expect this to slice one open and enjoy it. My question is to Japan. Coming from a Mediterranean country where I grew up surrounded by all sorts of fruits, vegetables, I struggle to grasp why Japan treats fruit growing as an art form. Many fruit farmers are often worn-out salarymen seeking solace away from the hustle and bustle of the city life. Others are retirees who picked up farming as a hobby, only to see it blossom into a fruitful business. Fruits in Japan are undeniably delicious and almost unnervingly perfect in shape, but the price tag doesn't fit. Following the fruits, let's talk about one invention that I will never understand in my life. Fruit sandwich. Yes. Japan's famous fruit sando. Let's imagine this soft, pillowy shokupan bread hugging whipped cream and big, juicy chunks of seasonal fruit. Strawberries, muscat grapes, kiwi, melon. They're as pretty as they are tasty according to many people. Not to me, to be honest, and a lot of people don't eat them. So let's talk about the history of these sandwiches. These fruit sandwiches have been around since 1920s actually. First popping up in Japan, coffee shops and fruit parlors. So back then, they were more modest with thin slices of fruit tucked inside. But fast forward to today, and fruit sando have evolved into edible works of art thanks to social media. They now feature larger, artfully arranged fruits that create stunning visuals when sliced into half. Guys, let's talk about that. You've probably seen them on videos, or people who travel to Japan have seen the scene. Mario Kart, the almighty tourist trap. Real-life Mario Kart in Japan might sound like a dream come true, but for many locals, it's more of a nightmare on wheels. Imagine trying to navigate Tokyo's already chaotic streets, only to find yourself dodging a pack of tourists dressed as Mario, Luigi, and Princess Peach, zooming around in a tiny go-kart. Safety, you ask? Well, let's just say that mixing busy urban traffic with go-karts isn't exactly the recipe for road safety. For residents, it's more like a daily dose of unwanted disruption. Cultural respect, let's just say that watching hordes of tourists dressing in cartoonish costumes zipping through the streets doesn't really scream deep cultural appreciation. Many Japanese folks see it as an invasion of their public spaces, reducing their city to a playground for tourists rather than a place they call home. Well, unsurprisingly, the Japanese government has been tightening the reins on this real-life Mario Kart madness, with Nintendo actually itself stepping in to protect its characters from being dragged into this street chaos. I don't really blame the foreigners as much as I blame Japan for allowing this, because it is indeed very dangerous, and I've seen them many times on the main street in Shibuya, in Shinjuku, in Nihonbashi, in Ginza, and I don't think it's safe at all. Especially that when they're driving, they are waving at people, thinking they're some kind of ambassador of their country. Well, unfortunately, they are. Let's talk about Pachinko. You have probably seen this or this. Let's call it from wooden toys to national obsession. Pachinko started innocently enough in the early 20th century as a simple children's game called Corinth Game, a Japanese twist on the American Corinthian bagatelle. Fast forward to the post-World War II era, and the game evolved into a mechanical wonder we know today, complete with flashing lights, loud noise, and absolutely more chrome than a 1950s diner. What began as a very humble pinball-like game turned into a national obsession as machines became more sophisticated and the stakes got very, very high. So why is Pachinko so popular? Let's start by the reason number one: instant gratification. Let's face it, who doesn't love the thrill of winning? Pachinko offers that quick rush of dopamine, giving players a chance to win, and those small fortunes in a matter of minutes. It's like the slot machines in Las Vegas, but with way more balls. Literally. Gambling in disguise. So here's the catch. Gambling is technically illegal in Japan, but Pachinko sidesteps this with a clever loophole. You win balls, lots of them. So you win balls, lots of them. Exchange those balls for prizes, and then conveniently exchange those prizes for cash at a nearby shop that is totally not affiliated with the Pachinko parlor.
I'm not going to say what race, what people.
It's gambling. Well, it's gambling, but with extra steps and plausible deniability. 3. Social escapism. Well, Pachinko parlors offer an escape from the daily grind. The intense focus required to play, combined with the immersive environment of flashing lights and blaring sounds, makes it easy for players to lose themselves in the game, if only for a little while. Well, let's see the negative aspects, what they don't tell you in the ads. There is a huge addiction. Pachinko isn't just a game, it's a highly addictive activity that's designed to keep you playing and spending. The rush of near wins and the constant bombardment of sensory stimuli make it hard to walk away, leading many players down a slippery slope. I've had a couple of students who suffered from this and actually were kicked out by their spouses from their house because of this addiction. Financial ruin, obviously, the house always wins, and Pachinko is no exception. While you might get lucky now and then, the odds are stacked against you. So many players end up spending more money than they can afford, leading to a serious financial problems. And it's not uncommon to hear stories of people losing their life savings to these shiny machines and even ending up being homeless. The impact on mental health. The highs and lows of Pachinko can take a toll on your mental health. The stress of constant losing streaks, coupled with the addictive nature of the game, can lead to anxiety, depression, and a whole host of other, mental health issues. And not so secret mob connections. So Pachinko parlors have a bit of a shady reputation, with many being linked to organized crime. The industry is largely unregulated, and rumors abound of money laundering and other illicit activities going on behind the scenes. Noise pollution. Have you ever heard of Pachinko parlor? I'm sure some of you here did. Let me give you an example. Enjoy. Okay? You okay? You okay? Okay. Here you have it. The rise of Pachinko from a simple children's game to a national obsession with some serious downsides, whether you are intrigued or appalled. One thing for sure, Pachinko isn't just a game. It's a phenomenon that's deeply ingrained in Japanese culture. Just remember, when it comes to Pachinko, the house always wins. This is something I wanted to share with you too. Careers as a foreigner on TV. There is a reality behind chasing fame on Japanese TV as a foreigner. So maybe some of you have dreamt of seeing yourself, on Japanese TV, soaking up the limelight in one of the most electric media scenes out there. Sounds like a blast, right? Let's take a closer look to what really goes on behind the scene. Number one, language barrier blues. First off, if your Japanese isn't on point, get ready for a wild ride. Speaking Japanese on TV isn't just about memorizing lines, it's about keeping up with the fast-paced banter, nailing the jokes, and not getting lost in translation. Think of it like juggling while riding a unicycle. You drop the ball and that's it, you're out. Even if you're fluent, navigating Japan's unique TV culture is no walk in the park. The humor, the social norms, the subtle cues, it's a whole new world. And let's be honest, sometimes foreign talents get boxed into playing this, exotic role. It's less about showcasing your skills and more about fitting into a quirky mold that might not be as glamorous as you'd hoped. Short-lived fame. You might hit it. I've seen some YouTubers in Japan from England or the US who have been on TV in Japan, and it was kind of like the way they are treated is basically like a novelty, like a clown. And it was really weird to me to see how foreigners are portrayed. Work-life balance. Excuse me? What is that? Well, if you're used to clocking out at 5 p.m., forget about it. You can kiss that routine goodbye. The Japanese TV industry is notorious for its grueling hours and basically erratic schedules. It's more of like a 24/7 commitment, while your me time takes a backseat to back-to-back shoots. There is a fascination with foreign faces on Japanese TV, but it's not all smooth sailing. Sometimes being the outsider means you're stuck in a box or subtly sidelined. It takes a lot of grit to break through those barriers and prove you're more than just a token foreigner. A career in Japan TV can be a wild and exciting adventure, but it's not without its bumps. You'll need to sharpen your senses, understand the Japanese culture, the Japanese humor, because Western sarcasm, for example, does not work, and you have to be careful about your image. On the other hand, I've seen a former coworker in Japanese because she studied here in high school, and suddenly I saw her on a program on TV, wearing costume and clowning around. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you have to give up a certain part of yourself to be accepted on Japanese TV. Renting in Japan. So, you want to rent in Japan? It's not exactly a walk in the park. First up, the move in costs are jaw-dropping high. We are talking about a hefty deposit, a slice of, what we call key money, which is basically a non-refundable thank you gift to the landlord, and a few months rent up front, but that's just the start. Landlords often have a laundry list of strict criteria for tenants, including the need for a guarantor. Good luck if you're a foreigner or a young person without connections. Then there is the issue of tenant rights, or the lack thereof. Leases are typically skewed in favor of the landlord, leaving tenants with little room to negotiate or plan for long haul. And let's not forget the rental market's not so subtle discrimination, where some landlords flat out refuse to rent for foreigners, families with kids, and even single women. Yep, you heard me right. As if that weren't enough, many rental properties are stuck in a time warp with outdated features and serious lack of modern amenities, making it tough to find a place that meets today's living standards. So basically the concept of key money, what we call Raking, in Japan's rental system dates back in the early 20th century and has its roots in the country's housing shortages during and after major historical events such as the Great Kanto earthquake in 1923, or also the World War II. During these periods, housing was in short supply, and landlords began demanding raking as a way to secure rental agreements. Originally, raking was seen as a gesture of appreciation, a kind of thank you payment from the tenant to the landlord for allowing them to rent properly. Given the scarcity of housing at the time, tenants were willing actually to pay this price, this extra money, to secure the place to live. Over time, what started as a voluntary gesture evolved into a standard practice in Japanese rental market, becoming a non-refundable payment required alongside the security deposit and initial rent. Today, while raking is still common, especially in urban areas, its usage has been decreasing in some parts of Japan as housing market becomes more competitive and tenants have more options. However, it remains a distinct, historically rooted aspect of Japan's rental system. When you are trying to rent a place in Japan, if you ever moved here, I would recommend you to always go through foreign agencies who say explicitly on the website, no key money. That's on your favor. Also, in case you didn't know, you are not allowed to alter a single thing in the house, or you can kiss goodbye your deposit, which will be taken most of the time anyways. Can't even put a nail on the wall to place a frame, let alone change color of rooms, since all houses have the same interior. This wallpaper. Japanese TV shows. As a kid, we all watched Sasuke, probably. But now let me talk to you about why I don't have a TV in my house. The highs and the lows of the Japanese TV shows, it's basically a roller coaster for you. Stereotypes central, basically some Japanese shows aren't exactly breaking the mold when it comes to diversity. They can reinforce outdated stereotypes and narrow perspectives, which isn't doing anyone's worldview any favor. So basically you will see the Arab guy and with a camel walking around, and you will see the American guy who looks like a douche with a gun. They always reinforce stereotypes, and there have been instances of blackface as well on television. Conformity overload. There is also a subtle, or let's just say not so subtle, message in many shows that fitting in is the way to go. This overemphasizes on conformity and can make viewers feel like they need to mold themselves to the societal expectations, squashing individuality and, creativity in the process. Where is the diversity? When it comes to representation, Japanese TV has a ways to go. The lack of racial and gender diversity means viewers aren't getting the full picture of what the world and Japan really look. Unrealistic ideals. From perfect lives to flawless appearances, Japanese TV sometimes sells an unrealistic version of reality. This can leave viewers feeling inadequate and constantly comparing themselves to characters who seem to have it all, basically, without breaking a sweat. We have a big impact here. Here's the kicker. While Japanese TV is great for entertainment and it's not exactly a breeding ground for critical thinking, instead, it often leans more towards creating a consumption-driven mindset. So you're encouraged to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, but maybe not question too much along the way. So while these shows can definitely entertain and even inspire, they can also shape personalities in ways that might leave you craving more than just the next binge-worthy series. Houses in Japan. We spoke about renting, now let's just talk about houses in Japan. If you're thinking of buying a house in Japan, let's dive into 5 key downsides served with a side of wit. Land prices that will make you cry, literally. The first thing is the land in Japan is pricey. And by pricey, I mean you might need to sell an organ or two, especially in the cities like Tokyo or Osaka. You're paying a fortune for what amounts to a glorified postage stamp. The smaller the plot, the steeper the cost. It's like real estate irony at its finest, basically. Your home is a depreciating asset. In most places, buying a home is considered as a solid investment. In Japan, not so much. Here, like houses start losing value the minute you get the keys. After 20-30 years, your house could be worth less than your couch. The land retains value, but your home, think of it as a really expensive sandcastle. Nice for a while, but hey, don't expect it to last. The hidden costs. The hidden costs. If you think the initial price tag is all you pay, think again. Buying a house in Japan is like opening a never-ending Pandora box of fees, registration fees, agent fees, the charming key money. Of course, if you're buying land from someone else. And let's not forget the annual residence tax, which will keep draining your wallet long after you've moved out. Maintenance. Owning a house in Japan means you are also signing up for constant upkeep, from renovation to repairs. You'll need to keep everything in pristine condition or risk your home's value dropping even faster. So it's like buying a pet that needs constant grooming. Only this one comes with a mortgage. The bureaucracy. Finally, let's talk about the paperwork. Buying a house in Japan is like, navigating a labyrinth with no map. Loans can be very tricky to secure if you're a foreigner, and the legal procedure will make your head spin. And if you're not Japanese citizen, prepare for extra layers of red tape, like proving your residence or finding a guarantor who's willing to vouch for you. So before you jump into the Japanese property market, make sure you are ready for the reality check. Land prices that sting, homes that depreciate faster than you can blink, hidden fees that sneak upon you, and bureaucratic marathon that will test you. That was amazing. But hey, at least you'll have a unique story to tell. This topic is going to be the most serious topic in these 10 things I hate about Japan. Let's talk about the perverted side of Japan. And I'm gonna break it down into small, important issues. Number 1 is subway groping. Train groping, known as chikan in Japan, is a significant and troubling issue, particularly in crowded urban areas like Tokyo. This problem is pervasive enough that it has led to widespread awareness campaigns and specific measures to combat it. But the question is, why? Why though? Why do people do that? Japan's public transportation system, especially in big cities, is notoriously crowded. We are often packed like sardines, particularly during rush hours. The sheer density of people packed into trains creates an environment where groping can occur. This is a recurrent scene in the adult anime industry that somehow basically normalizes this, and it's pretty messed up. You will always hear about it in what we call hentai, which is basically adult videos. So what are the measures against this used? For example, women-only cars. I'm sure you have seen them before, and I've shown them to you on Instagram. Many train lines offer women-only cars during rush hours, okay? to provide a safe space for female passengers. Well, these cars are usually marked with pink signs, yet you still find some clueless individuals who wander into women-only cars, like this fellow who seemed to think he was on a safari, inspecting the scene as if he were observing wildlife in its natural habitat. This is the idiot. This is the idiot in question. 2. Awareness campaigns. We're talking about posters and public announcements in stations and trains that raise awareness about chicane and encourage victims or witnesses to report accidents or incidents. The question is, do they have harsh penalties? The act is punishable by fines and prison terms up to, I think, 2 years. Enforcement often falls short. As these cases are frequently he said, she said scenario, this ambiguity leads many men to ride trains with both arms visibly raised, a defensive posture to avoid any accidental misunderstandings or false accusations of being a chicane. To the point where some men have actually started asking for men-only car. Let's talk about the impact. Despite these measures, the issue persists partly due to the cultural factors that discourage victims from speaking out, such as a fear of embarrassment or not wanting to cause trouble. However, there has been a growing movement, especially among younger generations, to challenge these norms and speak up against harassment. This change, of course, is slowly helping to bring more attention to the issue and push for further action. Well, there have been apps actually that help you tell other women that there is a chicane or a pervert around the area. And it's very interesting. It used to be something like a airdrop. It sends you a message saying, there is a pervert in this area, please be careful. Let me share with you a personal experience and I understand why they actually banned using airdrops in the train. I don't know if it's happening worldwide, but in the trains in Japan, if you by any chance have your airdrop open, accessible to everyone, and you receive a file, do not accept. I repeat, do not accept, because you are going to receive disgusting photos of men nearby. So please be careful. Let's talk about obsession over schoolgirls. So the phenomenon itself of adult fascination with schoolgirls in Japan, the cultural symbolism and idealization. In Japan, schoolgirls are often idealized as, symbols of innocence and purity. The school uniform has become emblematic of youthful femininity, which can lead, of course, to its objectification. This cultural idealization can contribute to a broader societal, fetishization. Did I say it right? Fetishization? So hard. Where the perceived purity of schoolgirls is commercialized and sexualized. Anime, manga, and popular entertainment frequently portrays schoolgirls in ways that emphasizes their innocence of young girls and influence public perceptions. The pervasive nature of media representations in Japan can significantly reinforce harmful stereotypes and encourage problematic behaviors towards minors. These stereotypes are not just confined to the realm of media, but are visible in everyday interactions throughout Japan. Interestingly, while Western cultures often glorify aging and strive for mature appearance, Japanese culture exhibits a different trend. Basically, it's not uncommon to encounter women whose physical appearance and demeanor range from that of a 12-year-old to a 45-year-old, making age distinction challenging. Adding to this complexity, some women deliberately adopt a high-pitched voice to project some kind of an image of youthfulness, which is perceived as a more appealing to certain men. This cultural phenomenon highlights a troubling intersection of media influence and societal expectation, where the idealization of youth is both perpetuated and exploited. Such practices not only reinforce harmful stereotypes, but also contribute to the normalization of behavior that can lead to the objectification and exploitation of minors. The attraction to schoolgirls can often be traced to psychological factors as well, related to the power dynamics and control, of course. The idealization of a youth may be driven by a desire for dominance and usually against very youthful image. This dynamic highlights broader issues of gender inequality and power imbalances, which can contribute to the exploitation of minors. From what I've gathered through discussion observation, many Japanese men seem to have a particular aversion to strong, assertive women, well, outside of the realm of fetishes, of course. Well, they tend to prefer a more subdued demeanor, which often pressures women to conform to a more traditional desirable mold. This cultural tendency underscores how gender norms and expectations can shape relationships. Let's talk about the commercial exploitation. Yamete kudasai, oni-chan. This phrase you have unlikely encountered, perhaps and even mimicked. Congratulations, by participating in this, you are unwittingly contributing to normalization of sexual violence against women. In its literal translation, this phrase means, brother, please stop, often interpreted as a tacit agreement or a consent from a woman who is actually pleading for a man to cease his actions, to basically stop doing what he's doing. This distortion of consent reflects like a broader issue with our culture. This culture grants a man a disturbing license to ignore explicit refusal and continue with their actions. Really sad. It is deeply troubling to witness this phrase being used casually or humorously while many women suffer from the very real trauma of rape and sexual violence. Such cultural practices contribute to a dangerous environment where women's plea are trivialized and their consent is disregarded. The casualization and normalization of this phrase in popular culture underscores the urgent need for a shift in societal attitude towards consent and the serious impact of seemingly innocuous language on perpetuating rape culture. Something else, Papakatsu. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but Papakatsu is a euphemism in Japan that describes a relationship between an older man, often referred to as a sugar daddy, and a young woman or a girl. Well, this relationship usually starts with an exchange of money from a man in return for a companionship only, which can sometimes lead to prostitution. The term papa stands for sugar daddy, while katsu means activity. Sometimes the phrase is shortened to PK, which basically translates to related to papakatsu. The more direct Japanese term for this practice is actually called enjo kosai. However, papakatsu is more cute. It's becoming more popular because it sounds a little bit softer. Therefore, feels more socially acceptable. Young women often starting in high school might begin innocently looking for a potential sugar daddy. So from what I searched, a recent report from Abema News, Japanese web-based channel, revealed that papakatsu peaks for many women in their late teens and early 20s, especially among college students. The rise of online dating platform has made it easier, of course, than ever for Generation Z to connect with potential sugar daddies, making this phenomenon more widespread and accessible. I've seen plenty of papakatsu couples strolling around Ginza and Azabu. Like, these are the two areas I've always seen them. They're easy to spot, honestly. When you see a young girl decked out head to toe with designer brands carrying shopping bags from luxury stores, it's pretty obvious what's going on. While I can respect the hustle, I have to point the finger at a society that allows underage girls to get caught in this world. And honestly, once they are no longer considered young enough, they are often discarded. It reminds me of an idiot who made a comment during a training session back when I was a teacher. He said that women over 25 are like Christmas cake. No one wants them after the 25. Well, shout out to DiCaprio for keeping the stereotype alive. There you go. You made it. Thank you so much for listening to all of this. I really wanted to share with you a well-researched topic and make you understand that life in Japan could be wonderful. But I wanted to prepare anybody who's coming to Japan to know what's going on really here, because I have not been told these things. The next video, of course, is going to be 10 things I absolutely adore and love about Japan. Do not take this video as the ultimate negative things about Japan, because there are a lot of positive layers in Japan that I would be happy to share with you in my next. If you live in Japan, have you experienced anything strange? Please leave them in a comment. If you didn't, if you have questions, follow me, subscribe, and I will be sharing more with you. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Oh my god, I spoke too much. I'm having a headache. I'm gone. Bye. See you.